Last Veterans Day, my son asked me, "Why do you keep those medals?" "Dad, they don't pay bills." I didn't answer, not because I was hurt, but because I knew my answer was coming. Just not that day. I live in a small one-story house on the edge of Dayton, Ohio. Nothing special, brown siding, screened-in porch gravel driveway that needs smoothing. Folks drive past and don't look twice. If they did look, they'd only see an old man stacking wood for winter or sweeping leaves off his truck hood. They'd never guess who I used to be. That's all right. Life has seasons. I know which one I'm in. Inside my house, it's quiet. Too quiet sometimes. For 20 years, I woke up to the whirring, knocking, roaring of aircraft engines. After that, for almost 40 years, I woke up to my wife, Linda, humming while she made coffee. These days, I wake up to the refrigerator clicking on and off. Silence can be a good friend, but some days it presses on your chest like it wants something from you. My children, Mark and Julie, don't like the house much. Says it smells like old books and machine oil. Maybe it does. I spent a lot of years with both. They grew up here, though. They played tag in the backyard, ran through the sprinklers, carved their initials into the oak tree by the fence. Funny how memories only stay warm for the ones who live them. For the rest time sands them down to nothing. On the Sunday before Veterans Day last year, they came to visit. Not for me, not really, just saw an opening in their calendars. They brought store-bought pasta salad and a rotisserie chicken in a plastic dome. I made coffee that nobody drank. We sat at the old kitchen table, the same one where Linda used to braid Julie's hair before school, the same one where I helped Mark glue model airplanes when he was 8. I don't think they remember that, or maybe they do. And maybe it just doesn't matter to them now. So Mark said, pushing his empty plate aside, "We've been talking." My stomach tightened. Those are never good words. Julie leaned forward, voice soft like she practiced it. "Dad, living alone. It's not ideal for someone your age. The house is a lot to handle." I nodded, not because I agreed, just because I've learned nodding keeps the peace. "We just want you to be safe," she added, her bracelets clinking when she moved her hand like every word needed decoration. Mark cleared his throat, more direct. "There's a place in town, a retirement community, not a nursing home, modern, very comfortable. They have activities. People your age. You could make friends." People my age, like I'd been put in a different species category. I didn't say anything. Julie's eyes drifted toward the shelf in the living room. My medals, my service cap, the folded flag in a triangular glass case. "You don't have to be a mind reader to see judgment." She exhaled through her nose. "Dad, maybe it's time to put some of that stuff away. I mean, it's nice, it's meaningful, but the living room looks like a museum display." I sat very still. "It's not healthy to dwell on the past," she said with the tone of someone who has never lost something worth remembering. Then Mark said the line, the one that stuck, the one that echoed long after they left. "Dad, those medals don't do anything. They're not useful. You can't sell them. They don't pay for medicine. They're just symbolic." He shrugged, like he was talking about old receipts. I didn't raise my voice, didn't stand up, didn't slam a fist on the table. The Air Force teaches you to stay steady, even when a plane is spinning at 600 knots and the sky looks like it wants to kill you. I looked down at my hands, calloused, spotted, but steady. When dinner ended, they hugged me like people hug a neighbor they don't know well, quick, polite, already halfway gone. The door closed behind them, and the house felt heavier than usual. I walked to the shelf, picked up the medal case, set it on the table. The medals didn't shine much anymore. The ribbons were frayed, the metal scratched. To someone else, they might look like junk. But I don't keep them because of the medals. I keep them because of the names. People talk about war like it's explosions and hero speeches. It's not. It's who stood to your left when hell opened its mouth. It's who didn't come home so you could. It's who trusted you with their last seconds on earth. I touched one medal gently like it was made of glass. "Rivers," I whispered. He didn't make it to 30. Another ribbon haul. He had a baby girl he never met. Another Captain Donnelly, the bravest man I ever flew with, killed in a storm that should have been routine. These medals aren't awards, they're headstones you can hold. People forget that. I reached for the folded flag. Blue field, white stars, sharp edges. That flag was handed to me at a funeral 29 years ago. The weight of it felt heavier than any coffin I ever carried. Linda was gone 8 years now. I missed her voice most in moments like this. She always knew how to speak into the empty spaces. I whispered into the quiet, hoping she might hear me somewhere. I know they don't mean to be cruel, they just don't understand. But understanding doesn't change the sting. I put everything back in place, neat, precise, military habit. Then I walked to the porch. The night was cool, still. The stars stretched wide and quiet. And I thought for the first time in a long time, maybe I don't belong here anymore. But I also knew something else. Tomorrow was Veterans Day, and I wouldn't be staying home. The silence didn't feel so heavy anymore. It felt like waiting, like the night before a mission. I turned off the porch light and went to bed, knowing the answer I never spoke was finally on its way. There are things you forget with age, where you put your glasses, the password for your bank account, the name of that neighbor who used to borrow your ladder. But some memories stay sharp, cleaner than yesterday, clear like polished glass. The Air Force years are like that for me. I didn't fly the plane, not the way folks like to picture it. I was an aircraft maintenance chief and flight engineer on KC-135 tankers. Big birds, long missions, the kind of work no one makes movies about. The fighters get photographed, the bombers get headlines, the tankers. All we do is make sure everybody else can get home. That's enough, though. It has to be. Back then, I was stationed at Minot Air Force Base way up north, where the winters chew through your bones and keep going. We used to joke that if the wind didn't kill you, the boredom would. But the work mattered. You don't get soft when lives depend on every bolt being where it belongs. There was one mission, one I don't talk about much. Not because it's dramatic, but because it still breathes somewhere behind my ribs. It was late autumn, early morning. The sun hadn't bothered showing up yet. The sky was a deep navy blue, the kind that looks heavy. We'd gotten word that a pair of F-15s needed fuel support on a long-range scramble drill. Routine stuff, mostly training, but drills have a way of turning into something else. We were cruising steady when the weather turned fast. Storm front rolled in like a wall. Radar lit up. Pilots started hollering across the channel voices, just polished enough to hide the nerves. I remember that feeling your stomach knows something is wrong before your mind catches up. Captain Donnelly was flying, best pilot I ever knew. Calm, steady, the kind of man who'd talk you through a crisis like he was reading instructions off a cereal box. But this storm didn't care how good he was. Wind kicked us hard, shoved us sideways like we weighed nothing. Lights flickered. Engine 2 took a beating, sensor alarm screaming. Turbulence so rough the floor felt like it was trying to buck us into the ceiling. The young lieutenant in the jump seat Rivers was pale as paper, fresh out of flight school, still had that shine in his eyes. I remember putting a hand on his shoulder and feeling him shake. He muttered, "We're not making it back, are we?" I didn't tell him we were fine. I didn't lie. I just said, "Listen to the captain. Do your job. Breathe." Sometimes that's the best thing you can give another man, a steady heartbeat to count his breaths by. The F-15s were in worse shape than us. They were running fuel dry faster than expected. If we didn't hold steady long enough for them to refuel 2 jets, and 2 pilots were going down into black nothing. Captain Donnelly's voice came through the intercom, calm like always. "Tom, I need exact readouts on engine output. No guessing, no margins." "Copy." My hands were moving before my mind could think. That's training. That's repetition. That's muscle memory etched deeper than fear. Outside, lightning cracked. White light carved the sky. The tanker rolled so hard my shoulder slammed into the bulkhead. Pain bloomed sharp, but pain means you're still alive, still in the fight. The first F-15 locked up on the boom. The refueling arm shook like it wanted to snap clean off. The pilot held formation with everything he had. Sweat poured down my back, but my voice stayed level. I talked the operator through it. 1 inch down. Hold, hold. Don't fight the wind, move with it. Breathe. Steady. Fuel transferred. 15 seconds can feel like an hour when death is hovering. The second F-15 came in. Younger pilot. Worse turbulence. We dipped hard. The plane lurched, and I heard a sound no tanker should ever make, the groan of metal debating whether to stay whole or tear itself into sky fragments. Donnelly gritted his teeth and pulled us level. No drama. Just will. Fuel transferred. Pilots lived. We turned toward home. Engine 2 finally gave up 20 minutes later. We glided lower than we should have. Advisory lights blinked like Christmas, but we made it to the runway. Hard landing, ugly, but alive. When we stepped out onto the tarmac, the young F-15 pilot couldn't have been older than 23, ran to us and hugged Captain Donnelly like a drowning man grabbing onto a lifeline. I remember thinking, nobody will ever know what happened up there. No newspaper headline, no award ceremony, just a quiet hero and 2 jets flying home instead of crashing into a frozen field. A few months later, Captain Donnelly was gone. Training accident, wrong place, wrong second. They folded the flag for his wife and baby boy, played taps, gave me his tools because I was the man he trusted most in the hangar. I still keep them in my workshop. Can't bring myself to use them. Can't bring myself to throw them away. People say time heals. No, time just teaches you how to carry weight without dropping it. So when my kids say, "Dad, those medals don't mean anything," I think of the storm, of Donnelly, of Rivers shaking in that seat, of the pilots who lived because we held steady. And I think they have no idea what they're talking about, not because they're cruel, but because they've never had to hold another man's life inside their hands. The night before this Veterans Day, I sat on the edge of my bed running my thumb over the metal on my uniform collar. Not nostalgia, not pride. Memory. Footsteps. Voices, storm clouds, names I will not forget. I wasn't going to stay home. Tomorrow I'd go where people still remember what sacrifice means. And I would go alone. Not because I had to, but because that was the only way to carry the truth quietly. I woke before sunrise on Veterans Day. Old habits. My body still keeps Air Force time, even if the rest of the world has moved on. The house was cold, the kind of cold that settles in wood and drywall overnight. I heated water on the stove, drank my coffee black, and didn't bother with breakfast. Food never sits right on mornings that feel like they matter. I took the uniform out of the closet. Not the dress blues, I couldn't quite fit in those anymore, and even if I could, it would have felt like I was play acting at my own memory. This was the service uniform, the one I wore for work, where stains had been earned and patches had meaning. The jacket still smelled faintly of hydraulic fluid and pine cleaner from base hangars. I ran my hand over the fabric, smoothing it where time had wrinkled it. The medals went on last, not all of them, just the ones that belonged there, the ones that didn't need to be explained. I stood in the mirror, 72 years old, a back that stiffened when I turned, lines under the eyes carved deeper than weather, a jaw that didn't square the way it used to. But the posture was still there. The training, the unseen spine that says, stand like the world is watching even if no one is. I buttoned the jacket tied, the shoes straightened the ribbons, checked the nameplate Sanders, and walked outside. The morning air bit at my cheeks. Frost on the truck windshield glistened like spilled salt. I warmed the engine the way I always do, patiently. Machines respond to respect. People forget that. The drive to the airport took 40 minutes. Long enough to think, not long enough to get lost in thought. The parking lot was crowded. Veterans Day brings out families, volunteers, people carrying homemade signs and folded flags. I saw wheelchairs, walkers, service dogs, little children holding up posters with glitter that would later fall onto every surface for months. The sidewalks leading to the terminal were lined with small American flags stuck into the grass. The city gets some things wrong, but not this. Inside the terminal was warm and loud voices echoing rolling suitcases, clattering announcements buzzing through speakers nobody listens to. But beneath that, there was a hum, something like anticipation. The volunteer coordinator spotted me before I even said a word. "Morning, sir." A young woman, maybe 25, wearing a red USO vest, bright-eyed, genuinely happy to see me. "Thank you for being here, and thank you for your service." There are people who say those words like they're reading off a teleprompter. She wasn't one of them. I nodded, happy to help. She handed me a small American flag and pointed me toward the gate where arriving service members would walk out from customs. The hallway leading to that gate felt like a tunnel of memory. People lined both sides, some with tears already waiting, some smiling wide, some quiet and steady. Older vets in ball caps with unit patches, spouses clutching bouquets, children bouncing on their toes. And me, just standing there. One old man in a uniform almost nobody recognized anymore. When the first group of soldiers came through, the crowd roared, not like a stadium, not wild, just full. Real, warm, human. Mothers ran forward, brothers shouted names, a father hugged his son so hard I heard the air leave both their lungs. I didn't know any of them, but I knew every one of them. Not their names, not their stories, but the look in their eyes. Eyes that have seen things that don't fit into words. Eyes that are a little older than the faces they sit in. Eyes that try to stay strong for the people who don't know what strong costs. I raised my hand in a slow, steady salute. The soldiers returning saluted back. Not formal, not forced. Recognition. The kind that passes between people who have faced storms together, even if not the same storm. I didn't say much. I just nodded when someone met my eyes. Sometimes that's all you need. More soldiers came. More families. More tears. More laughter. The kind of laughter that cracks open pain and lets daylight in. I don't know how long I had been standing there when I felt someone step beside me. Dad, Mark, and Julie behind him, both out of breath like they had rushed. Julie's hair was pulled back messily like she had left the house fast. Mark still had his work badge clipped to his belt. I didn't turn fully toward them, just kept my eyes forward. "What are you doing here?" I asked quietly. Someone posted on Facebook that you were volunteering at the airport," Julie said. "We didn't know you were coming." "Right," I said, because I hadn't told them. Mark shifted awkwardly. "Dad, we were worried. You didn't answer calls." I didn't take my eyes off the hallway. I didn't feel like talking. He didn't have a response for that. Another wave of soldiers began to walk through. The cheering rose again, the flags waving, the hugs beginning. Then something changed. The crowd didn't cheer all at once this time. It hesitated, rippling like people noticed something or someone unexpected. A young airman was walking slowly, bag slung over his shoulder, uniform rumpled, dark circles under his eyes. He looked around the terminal like he was searching for something he wasn't sure existed. And then he saw my name tag. His face froze, jaw shaking, eyes wide, like he'd seen a ghost. He walked toward me, not fast, just inevitable. People stepped aside. He stopped right in front of me. We were close enough to feel each other breathe. His voice cracked when he spoke. "Sir, are you Staff Sergeant Thomas Sanders, KC-135 Crew Chief, Minot Air Base, 1983 to 1991. It had been decades since someone said all of that aloud. I nodded slowly. "Yes, I am." The young man swallowed hard, eyes glassing over. "My name is Evan Brooks," he said. "I'm alive because of you." The terminal went silent. Behind me I felt Mark go still. Julie stopped breathing. Evan's hands shook as he lifted his bag off his shoulder. He was crying now, not loudly, not dramatically, just like something inside him had finally found a place to rest. He stepped forward and hugged me. Not polite, not careful. The kind of hug that comes from the part of a person that survived something they shouldn't have. And into my shoulder he whispered, "Your emergency procedure manual, the one you wrote, it saved me when the engines failed over Kandahar. I thought I was dead, but your words were there, your instructions, your steadiness. I'm here because you were." I closed my eyes. The terminal lights blurred, and I finally exhaled. When Evan let go, he stepped back just enough to look me in the eyes. His face was red, tear-streaked, but steady. The kind of steady you only learn when you've walked through something hard and made it back. He wasn't a child. He wasn't broken. He was a man who survived, and he was looking at the man who gave him the map home. "I don't know how to explain it," he said, voice uneven. "The manual said, maintain orientation based on feel, not on panic." It sounded crazy, but I remembered something an older crew chief wrote. "The plane will tell you what it needs if you're calm enough to listen." I nodded. Those were my words. I didn't remember writing them, but I remembered believing them. Evan wiped his face with the back of his sleeve. You don't know how many times that sentence replayed in my head, how many times I thought about the people waiting for me. I thought I was going to die, and then I didn't. He breathed slow and deliberate. "I just wanted to say thank you," he said. I didn't speak. Couldn't. Sometimes silence is the only thing strong enough for a moment. Behind me I heard a sound, a small one. Julie. She had her hand over her mouth. Not dramatic, not a sob, just a quiet realization cracking open. Mark stepped forward slightly like he was trying to understand something he'd never been taught to see. Evan turned to them, still sniffing, still catching breath. "Your father isn't just a veteran," he said. "He's part of why people like me come home. He didn't just serve, he prepared us. He kept us alive." The words didn't echo. They landed. The crowd around us had gone, still not frozen, not gawking, just quiet. People know when they're witnessing something they'll remember. Julie spoke first. Her voice sounded younger than I remembered. "Dad, why didn't you ever tell us?" I kept my eyes on Evan for another second, grounding myself, then turned. "Because I wasn't alone up there," I said. "Because men I loved didn't make it back. And telling the story without them always felt like taking something that didn't belong to just me." Julie's eyes filled again. Not shame, just understanding, the slow, painful kind. Mark took a breath like he'd been underwater. "Dad, we didn't know." "No," I agreed, not unkindly. "You didn't." There was no anger in my voice, just truth. Evan shifted his bag again. You could tell he was exhausted, not physically, but in that way, soldiers get after coming home. Like part of the war has followed them through the gate. He looked at me with a small, tired smile. "You good?" I asked quietly. He nodded, getting there. I reached into my uniform pocket and took out a simple rectangle of cardstock. My phone number, written in pen, no name, just digits. I pressed it into his hand. "Call me," I said, "anytime, day or night." His eyes flickered, grateful, relieved, seen. "Yes, sir." He gave one last firm nod and walked toward the exit, where a young woman with shaking hands and a sign waited. She dropped the sign the second she saw him and ran. He lifted her clean off the ground. The crowd clapped again, but softer this time. Less excitement, more reverence. When they were gone, the sounds of the terminal returned, slowly rolling suitcases, paging announcements, a baby crying far off, life resuming. I turned to my children. Julie's mascara was smudged at the corners. She didn't wipe it. "I didn't understand," she said. "I thought you were holding on to the past. I didn't think any of it mattered anymore." I shook my head gently. "It's not about the war," I said. "It's about the people. The ones who came home, the ones who didn't, the ones who still might." She nodded, tears falling freely now. Mark swallowed hard. His voice was rough. "I said those medals were useless." He didn't look away. I was wrong. I didn't let him twist in shame. Shame doesn't teach, it only crushes. "You didn't know," I said simply. He clenched his jaw, but I should have asked. I should have listened. Maybe, maybe not. Life doesn't give do-overs, just chances. This was one. "Walk with me," I said. We moved to a quieter part of the terminal near a window overlooking the runway. Planes rising and landing, life moving. The three of us stood there watching. For a while, none of us spoke. Then I told them the story of the storm. Not the whole thing, not every detail, just enough. I told them about Rivers, about Captain Donnelly, about the F-15 pilots, about the landing that almost wasn't a landing. I didn't dramatize, I didn't embellish, I didn't need to. When I finished, Julie's voice was barely a whisper. "How did you stay calm?" I thought for a moment.
You stay calm, I said, because someone else needs you to.
They both nodded. Something shifted then.
Not a grand transformation, not a movie ending.
Just room. Room for respect, room for history, room for me. Finally Mark spoke again, voice firm but soft. Dad, can we take you home?
Not drive you, not escort you, not assist you.
Take you home. Where you belong. Where someone belongs because they matter. I nodded. We walked through the terminal together, not rushed, not silent, just together. For the first time in a long time, I did not feel like someone fading out of their own life. I felt seen. Not as a veteran, not as a memory,
but as a man who lived, served, and endured.
And had more living left to do. We drove home without saying much.
Not because there was nothing to say, but because some understandings grow best in silence.
The highway slid past the windows, bare November trees, fields gone brown with frost, the kind of Midwest landscape that holds its beauty close and quiet. Julie sat beside me in the truck. Mark followed in his car. Every now and then she'd glance at me like she was trying to memorize something she didn't know she'd ever needed to learn. When we pulled into the driveway, the house looked the same as always, brown siding, chipped porch steps, the oak tree out back, standing like a guard who never asked for a day off. But it felt different, like it had been waiting. We walked inside. The air was cold, the kind of cold that settles in when no one's spoken inside the walls for too long. Julie set her purse down quietly.
Do you want the heat on? She asked.
I nodded. She turned the thermostat without another word. Mark arrived a moment later holding grocery bags, a loaf of bread, soup, real butter, not the cheap kind, and a pack of coffee I hadn't bought for myself in years.
He didn't announce it. He just put everything in the kitchen, stacking cans neatly, the way I used to stack tools on a workbench.
Sometimes apology doesn't come in sentences. Sometimes it comes in care. I hung my coat, took a slow breath, then walked to the living room shelf. The medals were still there. The folded flag still stood where I'd placed it. Mark came to stand next to me. No fear, no defensiveness, just presence.
Dad, he said quietly, would you let me help you frame these, the medals, the ribbons, so they stay preserved, so they're seen?
I looked at him. Not at the boy he was, not at the man who had forgotten, but at the man trying to remember. Yes, I said. He nodded, not a big gesture, just solid. Julie joined us. Her voice was gentle.
And maybe we could hang the flag somewhere where we look at it together.
Her eyes flicked to mine for permission. She didn't assume. She didn't take. She asked. That would be good, I said. We spent the afternoon going through old photo boxes, smiling at Linda's hair in the 80s, laughing at the mustache I should never have grown. Julie found a picture of me and Captain Donnelly leaning against a tanker, laughing at something nobody would remember now. She didn't ask which one he was in the story. She already knew. We framed his photo too, next to mine, not behind, not below, next to. As it should be. When it got dark, Mark made dinner. Nothing complicated, grilled cheese and tomato soup, but he buttered the bread to the edges, cooked them slow so they crisped but didn't burn. The way Linda used to. Julie set the table. 3 plates. But something was wrong. Not wrong, just incomplete.
There are some things a family forgets when respect has been missing.
She reached up into the cabinet, took down the head chair cushion, placed it at the seat at the top of the table. Then she looked at me. Dad, she said softly, this is your place. Not because of age, not because of rank, because of who I am, because of what I carried, because of what I never stopped carrying. I sat. Not slowly, not carefully, just naturally. Like I had simply come home to the chair that had always been mine. We ate, we talked a little, laughed once or twice. No explanations, no speeches. Respect doesn't need spotlight, it just needs presence. After dinner, Mark and Julie stood together by the living room window, looking out at the neighborhood, houses with flags on porches, lights glowing warm in the early dark. Mark spoke quietly.
Dad, I always thought service meant war stories, medals, parades. I didn't realize It could mean just holding steady so someone else gets to come home.
I nodded. That's most of it. Julie wiped her eyes again, but this time she was smiling.
I used to think you were stuck in the past, she said, but now I think the past is something you carried so the rest of us could just live our lives.
I didn't answer. I didn't need to.
Some truths don't require confirmation. They just need to be said aloud once. There's a quiet moment that happens in some families, not a climax, not a tearful reunion, just the soft landing after turbulence. We reached it. Later, after they left, after hugs that held real weight, after Mark said, "We'll come by next week," and meant it, after Julie said, "Call me tomorrow," and meant that too. I sat on the porch with the night air cool on my face. The stars were pale pinpricks instead of bright, but that was okay. I wasn't looking for fireworks. I was looking for peace.
And I had it. The medals were still on the shelf. The flag was still folded. The photo of Donnelly was framed and waiting to be hung in the morning. None of it had changed. But everything had. I leaned back, let my breath out slow.
People think Veterans Day is about heroism,
but it isn't. It's about memory, about carrying names that might otherwise disappear into time, about teaching the living how to look at sacrifice and not look away.
I didn't need parades. I didn't need speeches. I didn't need to be thanked. I just needed my children to see me.
And now they did. As I sat there, I whispered, not to be heard by ears, but to be heard by the sky.
Donnelly, Rivers, Hall, gentlemen, we're still here. We're still standing. We're still remembered.
A breeze moved the oak leaves. No applause, no music, just the simple sacred sound of a life still being lived. I closed my eyes, not because I was tired, but because I was home.